Welcome to the Your Peak Life podcast. Let's conquer the summit of life and reach the apex of our potential.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Your Peak Life podcast. Today I have a very special guest. His name is Travis Wallace. He hails from Miami, Florida right now. I'll let you get into your history and tell the audience about yourself a little bit more, but that's where you're at right now, taking your very valuable time to spend some time with me on this episode of Your Peak Life podcast. So let's jump right in. Travis, tell them about yourself, tell them where you're from, what you do, and then we'll go from there.
First and foremost, I appreciate you having me. It's definitely a pleasure. My name is Travis Wallace, like you said. I live in Miami, Florida. I'm actually from Atlanta, born in Boston. We kind of have that in common.
Yeah, we had that connection. I remember.
I was born in Boston, moved to Atlanta, and now I live in Miami. But my background is I was always a basketball player. Played in high school, played in college, played overseas in Finland and Slovakia. And then I got into training. I got into training athletes, and I'm just like you, man. We hit the ground running. We do whatever it takes. And, next thing I know, I woke up one day, I'm training the best athletes in the world. So I'm training NBA players. I'm living in Toronto at the time because he played for the Toronto Raptors. And I'm sure we'll get into all this, but I decided to use my skills. And I'm like, I've been training the best athletes in the world, and I understand how it works. Like, what if I started treating people all around the world like they're an athlete, like letting them get a piece of this? And so I started reinventing people. And we'll get into, but yeah, I started reinventing people and using my skills that I've had. We're
definitely getting into that because that's why, we got this thing going on January 18th that we're going to talk about here in a second. But first, let's just kind of talk, how did we meet? And, kind of what was that connection? Obviously it was in Nashville. It was at Coach Burt's facility, the Greatness Factory, but you had an opportunity to see me speak, and then I had an opportunity to see you speak. So it was a cool, intimate environment. Just kind of talk about that.
So yeah, man, Coach Burt, he's one of my coaches, and he's done a hell of a job with me explaining how it works and the ropes and just teaching me. But just being in that environment, and then when you had a chance to speak, I kind of resonated with you. I felt like you was talking to me. I understood everything you were saying. I think sometimes, especially when you can resonate with somebody, every word they say, you understand exactly what they mean, and that it's passionate. And I felt that from you. So once you got off, I just kind of introduced myself, and because I felt that way about you. I had no idea about this event or January. I had no idea. I was just like, yo, when I run into somebody that, I think real recognizes real. And I was like, he's a real one. And I liked your story, and, you inspiring people is all what I'm about.
I appreciate that, man. Well, having grown up in Ohio, obviously, I'm a LeBron James fan. You were training people in Toronto while they were battling,
Oh, yeah.
So to me, that resonated. Obviously, being from Boston resonated. And then I saw you, man. I was like, this dude is in incredible shape. What does he do? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, that's real, right? From any guy that goes to the gym, you see somebody, you're like, wow, that's discipline. That's dedication. You got something figured out, whether it's nutrition or when and how you're working out, or your schedule of how you're doing it and what you're eating, or whatever the sauce is, the formula you call it. So,
Yes,
I was intrigued by that. What does he do? Because, I mean, you're training the best athletes in the world. You must know something that we don't. And a good friend of mine owns the best gym in the area down here, Iron Asylum. And your story, what you do for a living, fit the bill for what I was putting together. And I'm like, well, if he's at Coach Burt's, he's probably going to write a book or potentially speak. So I met somebody that put me on stage. So I wanted to put somebody on a stage, and I felt like you definitely met the criteria. And then you and Sean linked up, and that's a whole nother thing. So just tell me about the journey so far. Like, why did you, start there. Why did you agree to do Determine Your Destiny with us?
First of all, you just said something. It hasn't came out yet, but you did just say something that actually happened.
You got the book.
Come on, man. Reinvention is a requirement. The formula is for reinvention. So just like you said, man. But before I even answer your question, man, that's what the environment does. That's what it does, man. Like, people always ask me, why do I do these types of things? Why? They don't understand it. I'm like, I wrote a book in 2 months of having a coach. In 2 months of having a coach, like, Did he force me to write it? No, but when you get in that environment, you feel like you put your back against the wall and somebody's like, let me see what he's going to do, regardless if he's thinking that or not. And that's how I look at it. I'm like, nah, I got to have a book. Everybody have a book. You walked up there with a book. I'm like, okay, I got to have a book. So now I actually just finished this, published, it's ready to go. We're going to launch it probably by Monday. But yeah, man, like I said, man, being in that environment was unbelievable, man. Like I can't explain it. Just the not only the greatness factor, it's the people, and the best thing about it, if you're here, you are serious. And that's why when you spoke to me about the event, I'm like, I'm serious, man. I wouldn't be here if I wasn't. So I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. So with what you do and the reinvention formula, I believe it ties into the determine your destiny piece because the whole deal here is health is wealth, right? And that leads to living a prosperous life, a fulfilled life, right? A purposeful life. So I think that fitness is a huge part of that. So what you're doing is reinvention through not just fitness. The fitness leads to self-confidence. It leads to successful steps to become more successful, right? And once somebody's more confident in themselves through how you help them achieve that, are they not more productive? Do they not earn more income? Do they not work harder, love harder, show up more? You know what I mean? Like, so I think I haven't read your book yet, but I feel like that's what you mean when you say reinvention, is you're reinventing the whole person, right? So talk about that a little bit.
The whole person holistic approach. I'm so passionate about it because I've been through stuff, and the things I've realized is what's in the book, and I'll speak on in January. Is like it's a requirement. It's literally a requirement. You have to reinvent yourself, or you're going to get left in the dust. And you don't realize you're reinventing yourself every time you take a new leap. You're reinventing yourself. It may not always be physically. I tell people you can read a new book for the first time. You are starting to reinvent yourself. You're taking up on new knowledge. You're always doing something. But the reason I take the physical approach, one, my background, but two, it's like I want you to see yourself do something successful. There are so many people in here that are around that don't see themselves do anything great. They never seen it. So if I can take somebody 100 days and walk them through it and coach them through it and allow them to physically see themselves do something they never thought they can do. Once they leave my program, they start to think a little different. Like, hold on, man. If I know what I'm doing, if I have somebody holding me accountable and teaching me the steps, I can be successful. So it's like you said, it's a bigger scheme in terms of like income, self-confidence, marriages, having, being a mom. I have a lot of, moms in there that just had a kid. Like they were this close away from saying like, oh, I'm a mom now. It's like, no, wait. Yes, you are, but you are still somebody. You are still special. Let me let you do something special for yourself, and you'll completely understand. You have a lot of room for growth.
Right. So with your concept and your new book, what can the crowd expect from you at Determine Your Destiny? Like what? I mean, obviously you can't give them the whole book in 30, 45 minutes, but what can they expect from you? Key takeaways for them to thrive in 2025. That's really why I chose January is like, a lot of people are still going to be talking about what they did in 2024 and New Year's resolutions. I want people to take tools and put them into action like that day. Like they hear us speak, they go to the resource booth, they link up with somebody that can change their life, whether that's an accountant, a publisher, an author, a finance executive. We have all these people coming out just to take advantage of that. And I want to just kind of give them a little snippet of what you're going to give to them.
The biggest piece I want them to take away from it is no matter what you've been in life, what's happened in your life, what you've been through, reinvention is a requirement. You have to constantly do it. And I know there's probably going to be some people who feel stuck. And I'm glad it's not so early in January. It's kind of late because that's when it's literally going to start going down in terms of what I told myself.
2 weeks, right? The resolutions go away in 2
Yep,
weeks.
they start going down. I had a video on that almost a year ago to this day. It was like 31% by the third week start dropping down. So it's like right at that moment where they feel like, hey, I told myself I was going to do this. I've already messed up. Like you can reinvent yourself, man. All that, we can do something with that. And that's the biggest thing I want. So like you said, the date is perfect, but it's like as soon as people are starting to give up hope already, we're there to, bring them back along. Like, no, man, it's not, man. You have the capabilities of reinventing yourself right now.
You have a choice, right? It's up to us.
Choice, man.
Does that not feed into determine your destiny? Like it's in your hands. I truly firmly believe that. Um, that has a lot to do with how I came up. So I kind of wanted to maybe get some of your backstory as well. I think that you and I probably connected a little deeper than just a book and the Boston Celtics, right?
Mhm.
So if you just want to tell the people about yourself, because you'll see somebody uber successful, or you'll see somebody in pictures on Instagram with Kyle Lowry, and you'll be like,
Mhm.
how?
Yeah.
Well, tell us how, man. It wasn't
Mhm.
all easy, right? I mean, I'm sure you have some things that
Mhm.
just shattered the earth for you and you've had to bounce back and reinvent yourself. So, any particular thing you'd want to touch on just a little bit so you
I
can't
got,
don't give them
I'm
too
gonna give him
much.
just a little bit. I'm not gonna give him too much, but
All right, all
because
right.
I'm gonna speak on this. But at 6 years old, it all started. Then my father went to prison for he served a life sentence in Massachusetts. That's where it kind of started. Obviously, I'm 6 years old. I don't understand that I'm reinventing myself. But my whole childhood, I was having to become the man of the house without even realizing. So I'm reinventing myself constantly, not realizing. And I'll get into that. The second part was when my basketball career ended. My whole life was based around a sport. I'm going to the NBA in my eyes. And next thing I know, I'm in Finland and Slovakia. I'm like, hold on, how did I get here? And I'm like, yo, this ain't the NBA. So, but just
Wow.
losing that identity of who I am, it was deep. People, that's a real struggle that a lot of people know. When you're a college athlete, everything is just handed to you. Hey, be here, do this, do this. Next thing I know, I'm at Home Depot at the lumber department. Like, how did I get here? And the third one I'm gonna speak on, I was married actually for probably less than 35 days. I had an annulled marriage. And that was one of the things that really, was like the knife in the back, not because it didn't work out, but because I feel like I let somebody down, I let a family down, I was embarrassed. So for 2 years straight, I'm just trying to dig myself out of this hole of who am I? How do I get out of this hole? How could I do that to somebody?
How old were you, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
kind of when those things converged?
So what the old marriage?
That and the ending of the basketball
So in the
career, when they
basketball
kind
career,
of
that's I was playing pro, so that's like 23. It's like 23, trying to understand who I am. My whole life, as like I said, I've been a basketball player.
and you
Um,
fatherless because your pop's been locked up the whole time.
the whole time. So didn't really have a male figure, trying to figure it out on my own. And then the annul marriage happened when I was 30. I'm 33 now. So 3 years ago, I was 30. It took me 2 years to kind of really, accept that. And the biggest thing that I want people to go, no matter what happens, until you forgive yourself, nothing matters. And I think that's why also like reinvention is a requirement because you have to forgive yourself. You have to forgive yourself for your failures. People who are trying to restart a business and they want to do it again, you have to forgive yourself for the mistakes you may have made in order to reinvent yourself. It's a requirement for us to move on.
I don't know if you know, but you actually just connected on like 10 other different levels, right?
Yeah.
Because I grew up in the foster care system and my dad was in the penitentiary most of my life.
Mm-hmm.
He's no longer with us, as you heard in the room that day. So I understand growing up without a father. I understand having to be the man of the house very early. Uh, and that's kind of something that always sticks with you everywhere you go. You just like you feel responsible for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that just digs deeper when you go through that divorce or you feel like you've done something shameful. Like my exit from the military probably didn't go the way I had envisioned it, right? I mean, I still got an honorable discharge, but I wasn't, I expected to be like a 35-year-old master chief kind of thing. And,
Mm-hmm.
it just didn't go that way, but everything happens for a reason. So, my father was in the penitentiary and I went to foster care very young, just like you stated, and uh, played basketball until I realized I was never going to play in college.
Mm-hmm.
uh, so that's kind of what kept me out of jail, basically, because I didn't know nothing but basketball, go to work, take care of my sisters, right? Like figure something out. Then the Navy came, so we got the Boston, we got the basketball, we got the penitentiary ridden parents, and then also you went through your divorce at the same age that I went through mine. I was
Mm-hmm.
about 30. I had just got out the Navy. I went through a very ugly divorce. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and everything changes in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially, I have two kids. I was married for 14 years. Talk about reinvention, but I'm happily remarried and
Yeah.
everything happens for a reason, right? So, but like you said, you got to reinvent yourself. I had to learn some things to be a
Mm-hmm.
better man, to be a better father, to be a better husband, learn more about yourself so you could pick a better partner, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So, a lot more in common than we even thought, right? So that just kind of speaks to like frequency and vibe
Mm-hmm.
of we just knew we had to connect, and we never even spoke at this level
Yeah.
about that, but you could feel it. So I think that's spectacular. Are you? What else you got going on with Coach Burt, man? I think were you in Nashville again recently? I know you went and saw Sean. You
Yep.
and French put out an episode that we watched. It was really good, by the way.
Yep.
If you want to talk about that, maybe give French a shout out and kind of how that went.
My shout out my man Sean French, man. I drew up to Naples from Miami. Had a great podcast. He got a good thing going. And we wrapped, and the book was just starting to come out, and spoke a little bit on that. Coach one-on-one him in the locker room. I did the whole nine. I'm one of them guys, man. Like when I first met him,
Yeah, me too.
I told you I was in a 9-day sprint, and I'm like 3 days into the 9-day sprint. I'm like, dog, I'm not doing this. Like I that's how I was. Like, yo, just give it to me, whatever. So, but yeah, man, it's just like you said, man. Like, and he can tell you, he can explain everything to you. I did a one-on-one. He came to Philly to see me. Like, he can explain everything to you in a day, but it's nothing like frequency. It's nothing like environment. It's nothing like walking in a greatness factory. It's not like seeing an idea come true and realizing, like, okay, it can be done. It can be done. And I constantly have to have that in my life. That's just how I am. I need to see people playing at a higher level, showing me the way. And the best thing about this environment, people want to see other people succeed. This is not one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, I'm here. Don't know. It's like, yo, come on. Like, let's do this. Like, the more of us, the better we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I published my first book through Coach's Locker Room with Daniel Gomez this past year. It went #1 bestseller within like 2 months on Amazon. I got my first paid speaking gig in the private hangar that night at the Activate conference. Uh, certified coach, certified public speaker, paid speaking gigs, best-selling book. Like, uh, people put me on stages from Coach's Locker Room, just like just amazing, man. I think it's a great investment. I'm very impressed that your book is already done, so I need a signed
Oh
copy.
man, hey, no doubt, I got you. But I'm telling you, but I'm not just saying it's not just blowing smoke, but seeing that, like, oh, I got it. I have to do it. It's a part. It's a requirement. Cool. Like,
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. And you didn't, but the fact that you're like this as you're speaking, it's like that changes the game. It does. It was like, yo, what's in that? Like, I'm telling you. So I went back. And I said, okay, Bert's been saying it. He got 22 of them. And, I say, then he got people that's went through his program that has one. I'm like, yo, I want to do what they're doing, and he's the best person to like lay it out how to do it. That's what people don't understand. It's like, before I got there, I'm like, so what do I even write about? What do I talk about? And he's like, hone in here. You have everything to talk about. We just got to get it out of you.
Yeah, he hit you with the demonstrated capacity.
Come on, man.
Right? Then the intentional congruence, right?
Come on. It's like, oh.
The story of origin, like it hit you with the whole thing. Package your purpose. Then
Come on, man. Like, oh, I see how you have 22 of them now. At first, you realize, like, how do you have 22 books? You know what I'm saying? But it's like he has a process that he continuously goes through. Like, I can write one right. I can write another one again, because I understand how it works.
Just like reinvention with your formula.
Yes, sir. Same thing, man.
100%. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit because this is the Your Peak Life podcast. For you, just to explain it, obviously I run real estate firms. We have a training program called Peak Performance Elite Sales Training. I told you that when we were at Activate Conference. And that kind of just spun into, because I sit in these rooms, these let's make concepts, right? So the Peak Performance just led to Your Peak Life and Reach Your Peak and Climb Higher and the Summit and the Apex. And we just went bananas because you got to come to the valley and peak. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, you just go crazy with it. Take them all.
Just turn it into a whole like rap album. So what we always ask people, man, is one, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And two, for somebody who's a reinvention expert and has trained Olympic and champion level professional athletes, like, what are you still reinventing? Where is your peak? What do you envision as your peak life? Like, what would you consider you've reached the top, man? You're living at the pinnacle.
So it's funny, man. When you reach your peak that you set for yourself at one point, you realize you need another peak. And that's what happened. And that's why I came to Coach Burt, because I'm like, okay, I became this NBA guy. the NBA space know me, but I'm like, is this it? Like, there's got to be another level to it. And I realized I capped out at that. Like, okay, what do you do? Go get another player? It's the same process, though. The person just changes. So luckily for me, I've been with Kyle since our Toronto days in 2016. So I've done it long enough to realize this is what it is. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a great dream, but this is it. You've done it. So it's like, okay. So that was like the main thing for me. I was like, all right, I want to reinvent myself to something else that can do bigger things. This person can only do so much. And that's how I started reinventing myself. So mine was more from like a business aspect of like, how do I take what I've done for the past 10 years and not just throw it away? Because to be completely honest with you, I didn't understand how it works. I was ready to throw it all away. I was like, I'm tired of people looking at me as a trainer. I'm tired of, and Coach Bird's like, no, no, no. And I'm like,
That's
Coach,
your advantage.
yeah. I'm like, Coach, no. Everybody knows he's a trainer. He's like, stop. Like, so I had to take, I took a step back and understood what he was saying. I already had started an online program of training people, but I was just doing it, and then he kind of gave me that direction of how to build a whole concept behind it. So my reinvention really came from me to be able to step on bigger stages, to have a bigger impact on the world. At the end of the day, man, these NBA players, they're making $30-40 million a year. Like, they are what they are. They're an NBA player. Like, nothing does my heart well as that person who's struggling to make $30,000-40,000 a year, can't see themselves outside of who they see themselves right now, and being able to put them in 100 days so they don't realize, like, I'm in this position because I've accepted it, and that's the biggest thing that people are realizing as they go through my program. It's like, the position I'm in, I chose it. Once I don't choose it no more, there's a chance for another lane. So that's where I'm starting to see, my reinvention. And in 5 years, man, I want to prepare people for people stepping on stage, because a lot of people are not where they want to be or doing things they want to because they don't feel confident in themselves. So being in that space, I'm like, a lot of people are trying to get into this. So I will always continue to work with people, but I really want to get to a high level of person where these people are like, I want to do great things. Because one thing I do struggle with is there's some people who want to do it for the physique. That's the byproduct. I wanted to work with people who want to be elite at what they're doing. And they know this is a part of it. This is a part of it. The better I am, the more confidence, the better I look, the better I feel, the better I'll perform. So it's kind of the same thing I took from the athlete, but I want to do it with people who are really trying to do big things in this world.
Yeah, because it can apply to any industry, anybody's life, right?
Yep.
Well, one, I think it's amazing. Two, I know that a lot of people can benefit from it. Three, click the link below, subscribe, get a ticket to the event. I mean, a general admission ticket to this event, Travis. Look, you go to a lot of events, man. You're in a lot of spaces with a lot of people. The general admission ticket to this event is $97.
Got to get there.
Me, Coach Burt, Sean French. I'm bringing in World Financial Group, top team lead broker. We got publishers. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I know it's going to be a great turnout. I know you're going to deliver. But before we go, we always have the guests. Is there anything that you want to ask me? I just sat here and grilled you for 25 minutes asking all these questions. Is there any questions that you might have for me leading up to this event, or just maybe that you've had since we met?
Obviously, you're in a real estate, business. And, my question to you is, when did you take that shift of, like, obviously Coach Burr helped with, like, building, like, how big was that, I should say, for you? Like, not just being like real estate, you know what I'm saying? Like, building a completely different concept around it. How has that changed for you?
This might sound crazy, but that concept was being built years ago. Like before I met Coach Burke, my boy Tim that you met from Detroit that was with me, he actually gave me that name. I opened my first firm back in 2020. He came to visit me. We served in the Navy together. He's from Detroit. I was from Dayton, Ohio. We both grew up very rough, so we always got along. Been boys ever since we met back when, I don't even know, 18, 19, 20, something like that, in the Navy. But he came to visit me, and we were sitting in my office, which at the time I wasn't the broker of the whole thing. I wasn't the face of the company. I was just an owner. I didn't have a broker's license yet. And he literally gave me the nickname Broker from the Bottom. Like 3.5, 4 years ago. So it was, we made a postcard. He hooked me up with an attorney in New York. We got a trademark. So Broker from the Bottom, like I have the original postcard that we made to get it trademarked, and it's over 3 years old. So by the time I arrived at Coach Burt, it was really a product of, I saw one of his reels and I was like, man, he's good. Not, it wasn't like the same stuff you were seeing from everybody else. Like it was intellectual, it was articulated well. It was thought and action and information, right? Like it wasn't just somebody running their mouth. He was in Virginia Beach training a mortgage company. I commented on his Facebook. His then assistant commented back, said, we'll be up here until 11 o'clock. He was at the oceanfront in Virginia Beach. I lived 10 minutes from there. So shoot or shoot, right? Like I just got in the whip. I went up there, chopped it up for an hour. The next day, I'm just like you. I said, give me the whole annual residence. I paid for the whole thing. And then I went through Package Your Purpose. And then I went through the coach's certification. And that whole time, I was actually communicating with my friend Tim. And then we started a company. While I was in Package Your Purpose, we went and opened Broker for the Bottom LLC. We started bank accounts. Before you knew it, we had an event with Eric Thomas. And I had to have a book ready for that event because I coupled it with a book launch and turned it into a watch party. And, just all learning, like, this is how you create a stage. This is the showcase. This is the taste the ice cream, like the stuff that we pay to learn, right? So once I started putting it to use and it started working, it just kind of was like, I always knew it could work. I just wasn't quite sure how to launch it, right? And even now, I just wake up and come up with 5, 10 concepts, and but what I realized was I was always doing that. To be 100% honest with you, like Coach Burt pushed me over the edge, and the atmosphere definitely got me to an execution phase. But look at the training program, look at the slogans for the company, look at how I write all my marketing on social media, and how I draft my emails, and my time in leadership in the military made me very attention to detail, detail oriented. Like, so it all plays a factor, man. But yeah, I just knew that my story, like, how long will it take to make my success so great that it solidifies? People need this, people need to hear some of what we've been through and where we are, so that they know that it's possible. They know that they can determine their own destiny, and that's just kind of, after going through Coach Burt's stuff, I was like, well, I can go seek out stages or beg people to buy books or what have you. And not to say that's what everybody does. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but I have found that, he says, you don't need more money, you need more people. I realized going through this process, man, I already have so many people. I have hundreds of people at these companies that I have ownership in, and those people touch other people. And just by proxy of what I've already built, I already have an advantage. And I was like, why not bring it home? I have so many connections here, so many people, so many military veterans, so many aspiring professional athletes in VA in the area. We don't even have a pro team. So, maybe you could give some knowledge on how they can get some exposure, things like that. Because it's not the same as Florida, where, you guys have high draft level in almost every sport, So, but anyways, man, any closing remarks from you? Anything you want to tell the people where they can find out more information about you?
www.the formula, we spell it FR4MULA.com. Instagram, Travis X Wallace, Twitter, Travis X Wallace. And I'm excited to see you in January, my man.
Awesome, man. We appreciate you being on, and be on the lookout. Me, you, and Sean French are going to go live on Instagram soon and talk some.
Yes, sir.
All right, bro. Peace. Thanks for coming.
All right, man.